Hallo, agus fáilte bhla ormh go trí seascad. An program ag BBC Alba a dul go críos scíalachan na boraníoch ingantach ar an saoil spórs na Halba. Is mis Iona Ballantyne agus ha mi gleich tólaítear ra go bhfuil Suzanne Lappin cólarúms an studio. Tégan na cluicheadair an mína parc na bear a bheith Glasgow City agus cúiseach cluich ar son Alba. A program scanneal éile ac an gaibh A-nochd. Le gem na Halba in Portugal na straia ar an seachcain ar a cúrge, Bhir sin súlarás go gem Jerry éile seach bliana arás in uair a cúr Suzanne an tal mhìorbhaileach ar son Alba. Cluinnidh sin bhfuil ball-lìnn Albanach Emily Nicholl agus mar a haid còmhla spórs a bhí geamscach mar neachlach. Agus seala sin gaibh an obair cuatramach sa ha Club Ball-Coise Spartans ar a bhí genús na córsnach achcha thro alm a ghlasadh. Suzanne, welcome to 360.
Thank you.
Now, you had such a fantastic career playing for Glasgow City and down south, but you're 5 years retired now. How does it feel?
Yeah, it's amazing to think it's 5 years. Yeah, it's tough sometimes, you know. Retiring from football was a huge decision that I made back in 2015. But I think, you know, for me at that time, it was the right decision. Yeah, I committed so many years to football, but also juggling a career at the same time with my accountancy. So balancing the two was always a struggle. But yeah, still play five-a-sides and stuff like that, but not the same as what it was obviously when I was playing.
And when you were playing at club level, 231 goals in 259 games, you were scoring goals for fun?
Yeah, no, it's not until probably you retire that you sit back and you look at that and you think, wow. At the time, you know, it's just, that's what you did. You just played, and you know, I played in an attacking midfield position, and scoring goals came naturally to me. But I think when I sit back and look at those stats, it's something that I'm really proud of now, and something that I should probably have took in a wee bit more in the moment. But really proud of that statistic.
And another thing that you're passionate about is representation of women's sport in the media. Do you feel like there's been enough coverage through this pandemic?
I wouldn't say so, no. But it's probably something from my generation that I'm probably used to. You know, there wasn't much coverage, if I'm honest, when I played. It has obviously got much better these days, but there's so much more that can be done. You know, there's so many top female athletes in this country, so many good teams doing positive things, and there's just not enough about it in the media. I think when Scotland went to the World Cup, you know, you've seen what the media coverage could do for that. You know, people that never ever had mentioned women's football to me, you know, taxi drivers, people like that, they were all interested, you know. So it is something, if it's out there and people can see it and feel it and touch it, then there is an interest for it.
Because I mean, when you were playing in the Champions League, there was no coverage when you were playing.
Yeah, no, we qualified for the quarterfinals of the Champions League, which is massive, you know, for a club that is completely amateur level, going on to compete against PSG, all the teams that were there at that time. It was a phenomenal achievement. But yeah, as I say, when I look back, you know, there was not really much media coverage of our achievements.
And as a former player, how difficult will this time have been for players who are in football just now?
Yeah, I think it's tough not knowing. I think the sense of not knowing as a footballer, routine is something that you thrive on. You know, you're just programmed to do the same things day after day. And I think not knowing when that season would resume would be the tough point for everyone. You know, I think at the start everyone thought it might only be a couple of weeks, maybe a month or so, and you're training to be ready to go back into it. But obviously that long period off, you know, it's almost like you're constantly training. So I think they'll be desperate to get back when they can.
And it was also a difficult time for it to stop because there was so much chat and there was coverage around the start of the season. Yeah,
no, I think there was a lot of positivity following on from, you know, last year in the World Cup and the success of that. Obviously, Celtic and Rangers strengthened this year. Obviously, Glasgow City are the top team out there and looking to stay so. But I think this season will be a really interesting season. And as you say, everyone was really keen to get it going. But it'll be interesting once it does kick off.
It will indeed. Thank you, Suzanne. Has Spartans een na clubichin Ball-Coise nach a bhín an tab tron ghlasadh. Heit Ainsley Park a clachuch son bíag a riúrachach an leib córsnach ceanna tuag an éitin. Chanig sin manager gníomhas agus opraí Spartans Debbie McCulloch gus barach fáin amach.
Spartans is very close to my heart, and I always want to try and give something back, and always have done throughout my football career. We have a real true ethos and family ethos here that makes it the most special place that I've ever worked. I joined the academy when we first opened back in January 2009, and throughout that period I've progressed from kind of football development officer to football development manager to the business and operations manager, and my day job is fulfilled by making sure that logistically the facility runs, manage the resource and staff, and also implement the strategy that we have on an annual basis to ensure that we have a positive social impact in North Edinburgh.
Tron ghlasadh, le na gcuideasain agus an luchóprach, by has còmhla gan Spartans, Ep3 geama choimhearsnachd, an Untitled Chapter.
We're based in one of the most socially deprived areas in Europe. There's real poverty in North Edinburgh, and we knew with the schools closing that the children that would normally receive free school meals wouldn't be getting that facility. And we quickly decided that we would turn into a food distribution hub and supply packed lunches, help local families with family packs on a weekly basis, and also do some kind of hot meal food packages for them too. So it was quite a quick turnaround. We didn't really know what we were doing, if we were being honest. We hadn't ever done anything like this before, but we knew that there was a real need, and I think more importantly, we knew it was the right thing to do. So obviously, you know, a large proportion of our staff were furloughed. We kept a small proportion on site. We spoke to other local agencies that we knew of but might not have necessarily worked with previously, and brought together a consortium of local organisations to make sure that the impact was as big as it possibly could. And the response was remarkable. One of the most humbling experiences of my life. The way that everyone came together was, you know, it was emotional, to say the least. And kind of gives me a shivers whenever I kind of think about the process that we've been through in the last 5 months. But no, everyone was absolutely fantastic. We worked extremely hard to put all the procedures in place to make sure it was safe for everybody to, you know, deliver the packed lunches, to, you know, pick them up, etc. And yeah, it was downstairs. Our community wing and changing rooms were like a food bank for basically 5 months. The facility gave us the opportunity to be able to do that. The people who have kindly made one-off donations allowed us to do that, and we'll be forever grateful to them for us to be able to put that in place and deliver some hope to the local community.
Van hánig an téise me géidir go ceann an san daving, ha skippen ban ddíadach iad céir gemich an farpaise go chluich. Ach, it a bhaid cutramach an skippe ein tíle gadás còmhlach son over an cluiche, nuas grach groich an savalche, so an darn naturis an fichet a haited ulachug son 6 uur.
I knew for the well-being of my players' mental health that, again, it was the right thing to do to get them back on the pitch into the small groups of 4 players to 1 coach. And we did it, and the players were extremely grateful for it and loved being back. I was really driven by just giving the players some normality in their life, and to get everyone back together, because, as I mentioned before, we are a family here and we spend a lot of time with each other, and for that to be, you know, taken away so quickly after, you know, a 7-week pre-season in January and February, and all the preparation and time and momentum building towards trying to be successful in the SWPL, it was difficult for the players. It was difficult for me. So to get us back together, I knew that would only be a good thing and would only have a positive impact. Everyone's had a good break. Everyone's raring to go again. We've had the dress rehearsal, as I'm calling it, you know, earlier on in the year, and you know, I think it's time for us to hit the ground running and gives us the perfect opportunity to prepare even better than we did do back in January and February. If there's one thing that I've learned over the last 5 months is that we're dealing with a very fluid situation. We have to be adaptable, we have to have an open mindset to the situation, and if we don't do that, then people will struggle to cope with the change and the differences in terms of what's happening on and off the pitch. So we just have to stay open to that and just make sure that we remain focused on what we individually want to achieve, but what we want to collectively achieve as a team also.
Suzanne, that VT just shows how important sport and football is as part of a community.
Yeah, definitely. I think, Spartans have always been renowned for being a team that have really pushed to do stuff for the local community. Every time I turned up there as a Glasgow City player, you could see the real community ethos that they had. I think what they've done during lockdown is absolutely amazing, and I think it just shows how important it is to be part of a team. I'm a big advocate of that. I think, if you go through life, you should always try and be part of a team somehow, because it really shapes you and helps you, become a better person as well. And what they've done, for the people in need is amazing.
It is amazing. And I guess just looking ahead to the new season coming up, Spartans and every other team will be going through a second pre-season. That's going to be tough. Yeah, no, it's tough. I think, pre-season for any footballer, it is not your favourite time of the year, and to have to do it twice, is tough going. But the girls will just be desperate to get back out on the pitch. How small it is at the start, just the wee groups of 4 that they were mentioning. It's better than nothing at all for a footballer. All the running and all the, going out on your own and training, it's not the same, and to be back out on the pitch with your teammates is what you want. How would you feel about doing it twice? Yeah, I wouldn't be up for that, no. I wasn't renowned for my love of running, so yeah, definitely not for me. And I guess with the new season, there is real concern to get the women's game back up and running, especially with all the changes that will come in and no fans. How is that going to affect women's sport? Yeah, I think, as women footballers, we've always been trying to push and get more of a fan base behind us. I think obviously everybody around the world is in the same situation right now. So I think, the priority for the girls will be just to get the game up and running again. And then as safely as we can, try and allow spectators to get back in and support them. Well, here's hoping. In Ep3 seascad hashin den an a sònraichte spór Spartan, agus a cuireann céil an cúid talent. In seachcinsa, hashin Ep3 cliucheadair ball-lìnn albanach Emily Nicholl. Emily cliuchar son an skip a leif professiontas an dheidhinn, side in strach clui, agus a cliuchar son h-Alba a geamachan chluicheadair dheidhinn sa h-Alba, agus cúpan na Cluinnidh dheidhinn sa dheidhinn. Second enam a geamsachach mar neachlach.
Halán is a cliucheadair alpa Emily Nicholl, Checho Dilv Sahai of a gopad at the Driach Spars agus Driach Professionta Eile.
I'm a great believer in if you want to do something, you'll make it happen. So when I first started out and told probably both netball and work about that I wanted to continue to do both sides had their concerns, but I was very lucky in the sense that I was very well supported and allowed to leave for training on if I had to train in that night. But it was very difficult because there'd be times where I might be working very late at night, but then have to be in the gym in the morning. But I think for me, I was thinking about this recently actually, because we've got a lot of younger athletes coming through our Under 21 programme, and a lot of them are doing professional degrees, and I want them to know that it is possible to do it. But I think the reason I've made it possible is because I've got such great passion for the sport and I love it so much. So on those really early mornings when you're in the gym knackered, you know that you're doing it for the benefit of your team and for your sport. So there's a lot of skills you learn along the way to make it work. Probably the first couple of weeks I tried to balance it all. I found it quite overwhelming, but by the end of it, it's just second nature to you. You just get used to always being on the go.
Get na chéile father is an úne haast on the ball-lìnn, a grún spásan an ban eile in niste gobrachach lánúne, agus sé sin an ruta smóa ha Emily an dáchas.
I think sport, netball in particular, but female sport and everything is going in the right direction. And I think the Netball World Cup in 2019 in Liverpool, I think that did great things for improving the profile of our sport within the UK. And I say in Australia and New Zealand, they're definitely making strides towards all players being able to get to a level where they can make netball their full focus. But even their training partners and stuff, I know some of them still work part-time, and the majority of the players in the Super League and Thistles, we all have to work. It's not an option, but I would love to be able to say that I'm confident in the near future it's going to happen, but I think it's probably a longer term thing. But I do think it is possible, and we've got the Netball Players Association who are also doing a great work with all the different governing bodies to set a minimum wage, to make sure that we're protected, and to make sure that we do have rights. So I do think it is possible in the future, and I just wish I was maybe at the start, very, very young, so that I could maybe experience that, because that would be my ultimate dream, would be to get to focus on netball. But again, I do also think there's benefits to having that professional side, and I took a year out between my diploma and traineeship and just focused on netball and did a bit of coaching. And while I absolutely loved that, I think I maybe became a bit obsessed about it, and you really then focus on the really minute details, and it's quite good to have that distraction almost of having work and a different focus.
Ha Emily fécinn go bhfuil spásan an ban an san náisiúneach iad an dlí chearst son na cluicheadair ha a géirí bhí an san dríach lánúne.
I think it's great, and I do love being involved in that wheel, as you said, and I am a player. I'm a member of the Players Association, and that's been a recently formed organisation that helps players push and take those steps forward, and we're learning from other sports about how to do that. And I think it is a really actually quite a cool time to be involved in sport, and it's really nice that there's a lot more. I feel like social media is playing a big part in helping sports move forward, and in particular female sports, because at times I go on my BBC app and I always just see sometimes male pictures, and I always count how many female faces do I see. So I like to see when female sports do that, get that coverage, and I think we are in a place where we're pushing that forward week on week, and eventually it's going to be a time where we're just as recognised.
Ha Emily Nicholl atá se go obair úr mar neachlach, ach bí háast a chluicheann in iad a sáte an an ball-lìnn. Chan erút furas a haun, ach cha tálaiste go bhfuil iad an dárút sin a good còmhla.
To be honest, I think it ebbs and flows, if I'm honest. There's definitely times where, for example, if work's really challenging, that I'll then draw on my enjoyment at netball, and it's a bit of a release. But there's times where you can have, if you're not winning or if you're not on court, that your netball then becomes the thing that's becoming a bit difficult, and then you really put your efforts into your work. So I think it is a bit of a balance, but probably a couple of years ago I would have said it's all about netball, but I actually think the working, although it's very difficult, has been very good in making me more of an all-rounded person. And yes, without a doubt, it has been very difficult, and there has been times I've been crying on the phone to my mum saying I just don't know how I'm going to do it. But then there are times when I now look back and think, wow, I can't believe what I've done. And I think having this time to reflect, where I've not been travelling to training and not been at the office and work, I've realised how busy and everything I am every day, whereas I've really slowed down. I don't have to think about where I'm going, what I'm doing, and it shows me how much I was able to balance. So I definitely think they've helped, but at times they help each other when the other one's struggling.
Suzanne, balancing your career and playing at the highest level, it's something you can relate to?
Yes, no, definitely what Emily was touching on there. I can really relate to that, having myself, played football whilst doing my accountancy qualification and throughout uni. I think it's something that as a female athlete with a career outside football, it's something you're always trying to strike the balance between.
Do you feel like you had to make many sacrifices whilst you were going through that?
Yeah, no, it certainly did have to. There was times, when I can remember when I was under 19 level, and I just started university, and Scotland were going away to the Euros, and I had to miss that championship just because it coincided when I was starting my accountancy career at university. There was times when Glasgow City were in the Champions League that they were away for 10 days, and I was coming over at the weekend. But there was also, you know, support from my work as well. I think Emily touched on it's important that you have support from your work and the football side, and I certainly had that as well. You know, the time off, the getting away early, the coming in late, all that support that you need to be able to sustain the highest level of football, but also sustain your career in accountancy or law.
Was it difficult to strike that balance? Do you ever feel like you were one place and you wished you were elsewhere?
Yeah, no, it was difficult. As I say, those times when I missed, you know, when I missed getting away with Scotland and I missed Glasgow City playing, you know, and I was watching results on phones. It wasn't even on TV back then. But you know, it was really tough. That was my team, and that's what I loved doing. But at the same time, you know, it wasn't a professional career for me at that time. But the love of both, you know, sort of drove you on. Obviously, football being my absolute passion. It was just who I was. You were an autopilot, you know, training in the morning, work, training at night, 5 nights a week. It was who you were.
I guess it has been 5 years now since you retired, and you've been working full-time since then. Do you miss it though?
Yeah, I certainly miss it. I think when I first retired, I really struggled with having that time. You know, you didn't really, if I'm honest, get time to stop and think after work. You know, just being part of a sport and part of a team, you're always on the go, and I struggled a wee bit with not being on the go all the time. I do miss it, and at times I've toyed with going back to football, but I'm an all or nothing, so it would have to be 100%, you know, playing at the top level and pushing myself to be the best I could be. And you know, when I did retire, I sort of felt like I could have maybe played for another 2-3 years, and I don't know what else I would have achieved other than potentially more caps with Scotland. You know, we just got to the quarterfinals of the Champions League with Glasgow City. You know, that was the absolute highlight of my footballing career. And at that point in time, I thought, you know, if I do this for another 3 years, the up early in the morning, the trainings, the not getting home to 10 o'clock at night, eating, then doing the same again the next day, 100-mile-an-hour stuff, you know, what would I have achieved? And it would have been more caps with Scotland, which would have been an absolute honour. But at the same time, I was always on the periphery of that a little bit, because I wasn't able to give, you know, the 100% commitment that needed.
How do you feel watching football now then?
To be honest, I still feel like, you know, Glasgow City is mine. I've always sort of felt like that. You know, I've played for them since I was 16, you know, and I retired at 28. They are my club, and I'll always look out for them. It's tough. It is tough because football is my passion, and I love playing it. But, you know, I'm at a different time in my life now. I've got a wee girl now who keeps me entertained and occupied. So, yeah, things move on and things progress, but it's something that I'll always be proud of what I achieved, doing both at the same time.
And I guess with where the game is now, playing professionally, is that something you would have wanted to do? Yeah,
100%. I think growing up playing football, you know, I think when I started playing football, it wasn't something that you thought was possible. But as I ended my football career, I knew it was something that was possible. Perhaps, you know, my age and the opportunities that are available now didn't quite marry up. But I think, you know, if I had the opportunity, you know, I went and played for Liverpool, I went and played for Chelsea, although they weren't full-time professional, it was, you know, it was starting to go that way. And if I did have the choice, you know, I definitely would have pursued it.
Thanks, Suzanne. In seachcin seo, has an ursúil tron tasclan a lot of geamachin sònraichte von vleidichin a galaf. Gevor seach blina kun line due for Alba Club Bosnia and an game Jerry Eile son Cúpan na Cluinnidh Fair Park. Uli gileir va seach tilland son Alba, le Suzanne a cúda síris a chéic.
Chluicheadair paar Gerish, Snedden, Tuckle Cowan, Evans, Gemaman is Loige, Who, Lisa Evans gonna box, Lisa Evans, Gerritol, Allapper Hoshoch, Lisa Evans Lish. The coimheadáidh the galappe and darn if on the Jachkin.
Evans a falla shears clear the party. Ball-lìnn was Snedden the eerste scarring alleen het Gian. Agus the finest thing in the box. Agus the trapse Kuhn stolte. Geheim the Chluicheadair play Margarida.
Little in the is it the Chluicheadair Diakovic. En Shitkovic and his shuttle runs up and he came off coming Avris. Al op het triestje van de Javal voor de Chluicheadair de Kool, maar hij had achter de East. Little, Genevukes, Little. Arashka Ross, tall to Galapa. Leanne Ross, the Shinard tall to Galapa is the Riege, Bosnia, the Riapig as a hele, the light clear Galapa.
Hele loaded the book the source for the pool, hence Lisa Evans, Chuck Kim Little, it's in the chef, took a count. I can call it cliùiteach agus an uairtú for the three the son Ross of Achin and Steven and Clea. Who was it Margarita, chluicheadair, later the skip a Galapa in a Dartha.
Going to have Bosnia see an ish. Fickle or Gavood, Castle me in the park, getting Gloria, Loine me in the park. Was it a little, your little hickey, Kim Little. Ah, Steve Connell drinking a cool that nog is good a hodget to the mach. I should nog is good at Casserish, actually Cassin, Kim Little, a guy from the Val, the Jamal.
But I click at that at least. Kim Little, natuurlijk daar jij fijn zo alleen geama machine. Merks toch bij Nicholas, Tsjechië toe gaan. Little toen en Pels en daar Pauls, Noorsen slijtige Tsjechiska, gestuurde harakat. Ju wou de eerste de plikke Tsjechië le Jane Ross is va gemachine pleetje dat de Tsjechië alleen.
Na primi, maar kom ik niet leeuwen. Tje, Socher, tje, lichtgach, tje le Stalin na Brian Kujok. Vorig gegen de game. Carmilla Gishaw, Corsi home! Tall Rachel Corsi, Farafos, Ganilian, Alapelis and Tosha Gioriga, Prasa Darnelien.
Wel, hoe willen en jullie alleen het in Bosnia lezen en unsige had de wie klechtje system zo'n la shop at een heike. Hij staat de Rachel Corsi kan hoe de soer, kus me jedig haal, hoe de show in Tarakat. Hij find Brie, agus leem in Nicholas'in, agus de trapse Hanneke Farafos. Agus nul tarsinge coole hodstage in de lijnen, agus de Tsjechië die willen, maar ook raad Erik, daar goed Staling, agus toch een pik en zoek de heat de kutje gestaan. De bal laat een Tsjechië de lijnen, je gaat Jerab, hasje toosje geven, Rachel Corsi is al op de kier is het daar de.
Zo hoe voor Jane Ross, Alice Evans, de jacht steeds cool die Jakovic reached. Haishin, Evans gaan boksen, Evans Skakel, Ross Curran, Paul de Galappen. Jane Ross, the first time, Elise Evans, agus spicken here, Evans and on the east. Tyrach riapig, tuil is alleen in Gianishin, agus skakel ik carriage.
Well, had je gedicht met Jane Evans, maar ook graag Erik, maar je count zoals maar zo, agus de fijne fall. Wat Jakovic vocht, had je dat korm kaviaan, agus goed hier heen wie het vier in je tarakje zo naar beginnen wie soundach. De nachtjeshin, jaren dasha, Paul Tonneschkel, Juhua gedicht voor Jane Ross, zo'n Tsjechië flikken te Gian, zo'n Noorsen goed aard, zoals gaan een nosje. Gemastol te Cluinnidh.
Oh, harig al de schach, en dit is een koe hier is ja, a Jenny Beatty, gamollige de hand. En dit is een kteach gekovaun geta, dat stok gefilm Jenny Easy uit. Ik ga houwlach.
Ja, Jenny Beatty kan het gemaatollische wezen en hij is weer een cliùiteach en niet hoe de zoek vergerig. En de naber is vertreim, stok een Nicholasje aan de kanaal.
En de kunt eruit, treim Nicholasje wel. Suzanne Lappin, de lip, Leanne Ross, de Chinje. I guess you find a mollig. De Williari, geen mij hier de Riesje, de Leanne Ross.
De week maat terugpel zo het live jeesje is. Wel, kort maar zo de noot de goal. Geama de viaje. Dus kort tussen Suzanne Lappin en Neden is dus tijdelijk vuur of de lijn jasje. Want een viaje van een neu.
Corm show. Lappin le tol, it's a shachgaum. Schittenhal bij Kiori. Vond ik het. Kwiet tol, vond ik het nog. Kijk hoe gas in de hofik. Wat nu kan je naar de Jacques. A shachgachke, a Suzanne Lappin. A tol in je nog naar Rijnischen en nooit in je landvarig.
Alles we doen Suzanne Lappin en schön naar wijs moet je. Wat zit jij die eerst? Ach, tjech, maar we hebben kraan strijd. Ik naar je korm. Dan zie je maar zo. En jullie dan naar Paul, en jullie smoeien met jou. Had je nog wat later, je zoeken in een vrouw, en je kunt goed vallen af, kutje, voor een collega nog een van een tooier halve jaar weken.
How does it feel watching that back? It must bring back a lot of memories.
Yeah, no, it does. I can't believe it was so long ago, to be honest. But no, good. And I never really played that much for Scotland in terms of physical minutes on the pitch. You know, I was part of the setup for a long, long time. But whenever I got on the pitch, you know, I always relished the opportunity, and goals were a big part of my game for Glasgow City, so it was nice to score for Scotland as well.
Do you feel like you could have and should have played more with Scotland?
Yes, if I'm honest. I feel like, you know, as I say, I was in the setup for a long, long time. I did do what I had to do in terms of commitment, you know, that sacrifice of training in the mornings and training at night and fitting in the work in between that we mentioned earlier. I thought I was always playing well for my club, you know, always regularly scoring, regularly up for the Player of the Year awards at club level and stuff. But, you know, with Scotland, you know, I wasn't the most athletic, I wasn't the best runner, I wasn't the fastest or the best at all the sort of tests that they did back then. But when I was on the pitch, you know, I really felt like I had a lot to offer. And it is something that, you know, I wish I had got more caps was for my country.
If you could go back, is there anything you would change?
I think, you know, I was maybe naive to the strength and conditioning side and that sort of side and how far the game was going towards that maybe I should have had more of an appreciation of that. But at the same time, I think, you know, what I was offering at club level, I think if I'd have got that chance and, you know, that run in the team, you know, I think Shelley is really good at that these days. You know, I've done a lot of commentary on the Scotland games, and you see people that are in their first camp and then they're on the pitch right away. You know, I was in camps for 2-3 years and maybe wouldn't even got on the pitch. So I think you need that, you know, something to show that if you perform and you do well, there is a chance for you here, and I felt that's maybe not what I got.
I guess the thing, looking at that Scotland team from 7 years ago, so many of the core players are still there just now. Do you think there's a real danger that they could all retire at the same time?
But I think they're still young, you know, they are still young. If you look at the balance, I think it's pretty well struck now. You've got the ones, as you say, that featured in that VT that are still there, but you've also got a crop that are coming through now that weren't there, like the Claire Emsleys, you know, lots of others, Lizzie Arnott, Chloe Arthur, that are all coming through and really sustaining the run in the team now. And I think that's what Shelley is really good at doing. You know, she's good at making sure there's that influx of players coming behind that are good enough to be on the pitch.
And you personally, I mean, you really lived and breathed football. What was your career highlight?
I think, you know, the Champions League with Glasgow City was the absolute pinnacle. I think, you know, being the underdogs as we were and getting to that game against PSG, that was, you know, that was an insight for us into how life could be at playing at that top level. But lots of highlights. But I think if I was to pick one, it would be that.
And just looking ahead to Scotland, they'll hopefully be playing their Euro qualifiers in October. What are their chances?
I think they've got a great chance. You know, I watched the World Cup as a fan, you know, and I was really impressed. Obviously, it didn't go their way in the end, but I think, as I say, they've got a great balance in the team. You know, they've got a great ethos, they've got a great team spirit, and I think, you know, the group that they've got, you would really fancy them to do well and progress.
Well, fingers crossed, we'll see them on the park. Well, sin ar son program na seachcainte, ma hag for do Suzanne is son bhíam cúteach in studio. Fyti sé bharnisca lentil gach seachcain ar YouTube, mar sin Jancín seachcain each shape go bhfuil a cortabhraibh, go bhfuil sibh gar lentil agus nach cail sibh program sin bí. Cainigh go raibh seo an program acah sé, mar sin scelbhan neach fat agus farsing agus cumhmhoribh bí coiad. Fo dachí spórs war a nich na h-Alba, mar sin live an drast.